Welcome everyone to today's webinar. This is the fifth webinar in the Labstepping Stones series. So if you've joined us on any of our previous webinars, welcome back. If you're a new joiner, then hello, and I hope you all enjoy the webinar. Got some very exciting stuff talking about with some very exciting guests. Today we're going to be talking about automating your workflow with Jupyter Notebooks. So before I set into the webinar, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. So you'll notice that the cameras are turned off and your microphones are turned off, but we will have a really fun Q&A session at the end, and we'll pause for a few questions throughout the webinar. And we also have the chat function enabled, so you'll be able to ask a few questions as the webinar is going on. So please do remember to be respectful of other people in the chat. The webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to it afterwards. So it will most likely be uploaded tomorrow. And you are more than welcome to open up Labstep and try a few things alongside if you are able. So without further ado, let's meet some of our webinar panelists. So you've got myself, my name's Amira Fitzpatrick. I'm one of the customer success managers here at Labstep, and I'll be your host today. We also have Charlotte Ward, our lovely guest speaker. She is an implementations manager here at Labstep, and she will be talking to you all about Jupyter Notebooks and the wonderful things that it can do. We also have Ethan Spina, who is a customer success manager also, and he'll be managing the chat and telling us some of the questions that come up. So Ethan, Charlotte, how are you today?
Very well, thanks, Amira.
Very good. Ethan, you okay?
Yeah, all good. Been waiting for this webinar all day.
Yeah, I think all of us are really eager to get in, learn some more about Jupyter Notebooks. So, Charlotte, can you just tell us a little bit about what Jupyter Notebooks is and how it works?
Yeah, sure. Thank you ever so much, Amira. So Jupyter Notebooks is it's a fairly standard tool in sciences, particularly in data science or biosciences. Some of you may have heard of it or already be using it. In a nutshell, it's a programming environment that allows you to run Python scripts. You can also use other languages, but Python is the main one. It's pretty good for things like data analysis because it allows you to have a script with your inputs and quickly visualize any outputs that come from running that script.
Amazing. So what will our Labstep customers really be using this for?
Yeah, well, it's what's quite nice now, and the reason why we're having this webinar is we have integrated Jupyter Notebooks into the Labstep environment. So as I say, this is quite a standard thing, so it's got a lot of functionality and benefits in its own right, but by bringing it into Labstep, we're bringing a whole host of other things you can do with it, which is what we find quite exciting and where we hope most people here could really get some key benefits. Yeah, so we're going to go through some examples that kind of illustrate the kind of things you can do with it, but just as a brief way of introduction, it's very, by running this in Labstep, it gives you all those benefits of being able to do sort of automated and reproducible data analysis, taking a sort of manual labor out of some of your workflows. But within the Labstep environment, it creates a structure and a system for organizing this work for starters. So if you imagine trying to work on something like this, collaborate with someone without the added benefits of a cloud ecosystem, you might have a load of data that you're trying to analyze, and you might be working with a bioinformatician to do the analysis on this, and you might be passing things back and forth between each other, data sets and different versions of scripts, and you'll be having things piling up in your inbox where you're trying to work collaboratively on something, and somehow you have to keep track of like what's the latest version and download everything onto your computer. By bringing this functionality into the Labstep environment, it means that we can just do the analysis there and then. We can have very structured formats where you can have your experiment, what you've executed, the data that's come out of that, and then any analysis, any processing that's been done with a script, you can visualize it all in one place. You can come together with members of your team or other collaborators and work in a single place.
Amazing. And I know that Labstep runs off of an API. So how does Jupyter Notebook sort of interact with that?
Yeah, sure. So this might be functionality that our current users are already using. As you say, we've got an API which allows you to do slightly more powerful or sophisticated things than you could do through the user interface. Things like editing your resources or accessing your data. And this is all Python-based, the SDK, which we use to access the API. And because we also run Python scripts in Jupyter Notebooks, it means you can now get all that functionality of the API, but use it within a Jupyter Notebook, actually within the Labstep environment. Again, if that didn't make a lot of sense, hopefully the examples that we're going to go through are going to clarify how this works. It basically allows you to interact with the other modules of Labstep within an experiment.
Cool. And I guess before we can crack on, could you just elaborate for people that maybe won't have too much knowledge on what an API is? Because I think that's really the key into understanding Jupyter Notebooks right now.
Yeah, so an API is a very standard thing. It's very, it's what, it's something that exists in all cloud software. It is essentially just a way to interact with the software. Most of what we do it through a user interface where you're clicking on things and dragging things and dropping things and all that kind of stuff. An API allows you to do essentially all the same things, but our API anyway allows you to do all the same things that you can do in the user interface, but it gives you a bit more power, and you would access it by running a script that carries out the particular functions you're after. So, for example, if you wanted to bulk upload 2,000 resources, you could do this much quicker through the API to get everything in this sort of structure that you're after.
Amazing. So let's dive straight into showing everyone what Jupyter Notebooks is all about. So primarily, I guess you'd start off by setting up your script. So if you could just give us a little bit of a talk through that, that would be amazing. And here goes my flight with technology. So I'll just get the video started.
Great, thank you. Yes, so what we're showing in this video is just how you get into the Jupyter Notebook environment within Labstep. What you saw there on the video is we just do this / command, type in Jupyter Notebooks, and it will launch a new notebook for you. The server starts up, and then you've got this cell, which we're looking at now, where you can edit, where you can write some code. We've got a really simple script going in there right now. Which is gives you a really exciting output. So you've got this, you open it up within an experiment or within a protocol within Labstep. You can put your scripts directly into this cell that opens up. You can run the script within that editor cell that you've got there, so you can see that hello world output. You can see the outcome of that script appearing. So that's one way that you can run the script. However, if you're someone who just wants to run the scripts and you don't want to edit them, imagine you have some standardized scripts that you or your team are using, and you just want to put these in your experiments and then run them for different things. You can simply press the small play button or the sort of like rerun arrow, which is to the right of those scripts within the experiment. And so you don't have to enter the Jupyter Notebook editor at all. You can simply just run it directly from the Labstep experiment or protocol.
Very cool. So, I mean, as much as 4 hellos is really cool, let's see some use case examples. So do you want me to press play on this now? Are you ready?
Yes, please. Yes. So great. Thank you, Amira. This gives a little bit more context as how you can use these in a useful way, because as you say, you probably don't want to print out hello world 4 times. In this very hypothetical example, we've got a mock-up of an ELISA. We've done an ELISA and we've got some hypothetical data sets out of it. We're imagining we've done duplicate analysis of our samples, so we've got 2 data sets from 2 plate readings. And what you can see happening in the video is I'm just dropping these data sets directly into a data field in there. Regular users of Labstep will know that you can also just connect a device to Labstep. So you could have something like this set up where you just directly pull in the data from your device. And then what we've got below in this results tab, which I'm showing you right now, is our Jupyter Notebook script. And what this is going to do is it's going to go through the data within those CSV files. It's going to pull out the data. It's going to structure it so that we've got in usable format And then between the two duplicate data sets, it's going to make an average. It's going to give us that information along with a standard deviation for each sample, so that we can then take that information forwards and use it for whatever downstream analysis we want to do. So that's just saying that it has finished running the script. We refresh the page to see the changes, and there it is, right down the bottom there. You can see that a new table has appeared, and this has got our structured data in it. It's got the two data sets, average and the standard deviation for them. So you could then take this and do whatever you want with it.
Very cool. I mean, I remember when I did my uni project, I spent so much time manipulating the data and getting it from one device to the other. And, you know, it's really interesting to see how the / command works all the way from creating inventory to then linking devices to then this further layer of Jupyter Notebooks to really provide that sort of automated workflow that we're trying to encourage people to use. That's really cool. Ethan, I don't know if we have any questions in the chat that we want to talk about before we move on to the next example.
No questions in the chat at the moment, but personally, I do have one actually, because I'm not very knowledgeable with Jupyter Notebooks, admittedly. So this is as much of a webinar for everyone else as it is for me. So just some simple things. Will this still run if I close Labstep?
Yeah, sure. Because Labstep is cloud-based, you can just you can set something running, and then when you come back to it, it should have executed, and you can see your results there. Sometimes if you're doing something really big, you could it could take a little while, so you can always like go away and come back. I've not personally been doing anything that's been so massive that I've wanted to like close it and come back, but it's possible if you wanted to do that.
Right. And in a similar vein, can you run it in the background whilst, like, for example, if I'm running another experiment?
Yeah, absolutely. And you could have multiple scripts running at the same time. For each script you have, it will launch a new Jupyter server. So you can have multiple things running, and that's fine. It will just execute them all in turn.
Super useful. We do have one question in the chat here. How do you create a notebook in an experiment?
Sure. Maybe we could very quickly go back and look at that. Amira, is it possible to go back a slide?
Yeah.
So this is the video again. Sorry, it's quite quick, but you can sort of see I'm just typing in a / and then writing Jupyter Notebook. And when you do this / command in Labstep, it gives you a list of what we call interactive elements, but it's essentially the interesting bits that you can insert into your experiment or your protocol. So by just doing the / and typing Jupyter Notebook, it will give you that option. You select it, and that's it. That's really all you have to do to insert it within your experiment. When you want to open up the Jupyter Notebook to edit, like what's going on in the screen right now, you simply have to click on that interactive element that you've inserted. You just click on it, and it will launch the server by itself, and it all, it all happens automatically.
Great. Hopefully that answers that question.
Oh, are you looking on your own list? Are you? So actually, sorry, this is something we maybe should have clarified right from the beginning. It's not, because this is a premium feature, it's not switched on for everybody right now. If you can't see it and you want to see it, or you think you should see it, please get in touch with us because we can sort this out. Amira, you probably have more to say on that.
Yeah, definitely. I know you guys are obviously really keen to start using it. It is a really cool feature. We will have a bit of a discussion on how you can access Jupyter Notebooks. And as Charlotte said, after the webinar, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to enable the feature for you. And once it's enabled, you can use that / command to start scripting away. So yeah, that really relevant question, especially when we encourage everyone to try along with us, but maybe don't explain it fully. So with the Jupyter Notebook, Charlotte, I can imagine that aside from data processing, a lot of our customers would probably be rerunning a standard set of data using different bits of inventory and, wanting to see a sort of visualization of their results, something like a graph. So if you could maybe explain to us or talk us through an example of that, that would be really great, I think.
Sure. If you want to set this next example playing. Yeah. So in this one, what you can see happening on the screen at the moment is I'm just putting through different items within our inventory. I've got some samples in there that I want to analyze. And again, this is a very just like hypothetical situation. In this experiment mock-up, we have several samples and we've analyzed them using a bioanalyzer. So we're putting the samples that we want to analyze in the top from our inventory. And in this interactive table that you can see, we've just dropped some hypothetical data from a bioanalyzer. What the script is going to do in this situation is it's going to check the samples that we're interested in that we put at the front. It's going to scan through that table of data for any relevant data. So anything that's related to the specific samples that we have chosen, it's going to pull out that relevant data, structure it, and then plot it on a graph. So you can imagine using this in a situation where you're doing the same kind of experiment. In this site, we had this idea of you've done a culture and you want to have regularly analyze the medium from the cultures you've been running and look at the different metabolites that you can find in there. You could have a script like this to just pull out all the relevant data and then put it in some kind of easily visual format for you. So the script has run here. It has generated this graph for us with the relevant data with our acetate, lactate, and glucose levels. And you can take that graph and stick it straight into a report or for any analysis you're doing. So yeah, similar flavor, but different kind of things to the first example here. We're interacting with the inventory using, so that'll be something that runs through our API. And we're actually graphing our results at the end. Something that's quite useful about using Jupyter Notebooks is because it's Python based, you've got access to all the kind of standard libraries that you might want to use for data analysis or graphing or that kind of thing. So for this one, I use the matplotlib library, but there's things like pandas and numpy, which are very standard libraries for using in data analysis. Yeah. What's also very useful is you don't have to download any of these things. So because it's all cloud-based, normally if you're doing some kind of scripting on your computer, libraries like that you'd have to download. And these things are all doable, but it can be quite a, you know, when you're first starting out and you just want to get in and do some scripting, it's an awful lot of setup overhead. You don't have any of that there. You just can straight away import them and start using them.
Very cool. And I guess one thing that is quite important to a lot of people that maybe want to use this feature is the reusability of it. So is there a constraint on how many times you can run each script? So obviously some people might template these, and could you encourage like the script to be used in the template and then keep using the template, or does it have a limit on it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can run things as many times as you want. Like, as you say, you can make some standardized scripts that you want to put into as a template that you put into a number of experiments and run them however you want on, you know, different kind of inputs. Or you might have an experiment where you want to like constantly tweak your inputs or the kind of analysis you're doing and then just keep rerunning the script. And these scripts are made to be run and rerun.
Cool. And I guess that would probably save people a lot of time as well. So Ethan, I don't know if we had any more questions popping up in the chat related to this example.
We do, yeah. So a great question here, and I thought it'd be better clarified by Charlotte. Is Labstep keeping a track of different versions of scripts?
Yeah, great question. So at the moment, not explicitly, not separately to how we do other versioning. So I think what I would recommend for any users using this is, if you want to keep track of versioning of scripts, is to use our protocols feature, because you can write the scripts within a protocol, like I've shown them being written in an experiment here, and then we can use versioning with protocols in order to save different versions.
Cool. Don't know if we had any more. Hopefully that answered that individual's question.
Yeah, it should have. Just give it a second for if it hasn't. Just before we move on though, Charlotte, I've got a question for you. Again, this sort of work isn't my forte, but I'm very interested in it. So how much Python do I need to know to use Jupyter Notebooks? And can I use any other languages for this?
Oh yeah, Couple of good questions. So how much do you need to know? I mean, you can go on learning forever. You definitely only need a little bit to get started and start doing the first things with it. What's really nice is Python is obviously a very commonly used and very standard language within sciences. There's an awful lot of resources out there for learning to use Python. The scripts that you write in Jupyter Notebooks are very standard. It's, it's just normal Python. But the other thing I'd like to stress is we're very much here to help. So to get you up and running, we can give you some example scripts. If you've got particular things that you want done, you can actually contact us and we can do things for you. Or you just want a bit of advice and help, we're also here. We've got the whole customer success team, and we also have an implementations team that deal with these scripts. Your other question about languages. Yes, so Jupyter Notebook, you can run other languages in Jupyter Notebook. At the moment, we just support Python, but if anybody is particularly interested in running scripts in other languages, for example, if you've got a load of scripts in R or something like that, please get in contact with us. It is feasible that we could add other languages, but we would just if there's a demand for it, this is something that's possible for us.
Great, thanks for letting me know. We're coming through with a few more questions here. We'll just give them an answer and then we'll move on. But we have, how is the Python environment defined? Can we install our own custom packages and functions?
Yes, well, it's defined in the same way that you would do it in your local environment. So if you want to use pandas, you would just start your scripts with import pandas. With regard to running your own custom packages, I'm not completely sure. I think we'll have to check up on that one. Get in touch with us, Noah, and let us know which ones you're particularly interested in, and we can try this out and find out if it's possible.
Cool. And we've got quite a few more questions here, but let's bring them up at the end of the session. Otherwise, we might not be able to finish.
Yeah, and as I'm sure everyone's eager to move on to the next bit about how you can actually access Jupyter Notebooks. So that was a great round of questions. So just before we go into that, I'm really teasing it with you guys here. I just want to emphasize the real value that Jupyter Notebooks is adding. And I'm sure Charlotte will agree that it is just that added layer of automation, and it just saves you so much time. As you mentioned, transferring data from emails, USBs, folders, it's really taken out when you're using the Jupyter Notebooks. All of that API integration from anything from, you can scan in your bits of inventory with QR codes now. And I think this move and the way that technology works is so interesting because you have so many functions you can do, even just within Labstep to get your data in. You've got the API, which allows you to connect devices. And then from those devices, you can use the data with Jupyter Notebooks to really connect it all, and by being able to reuse the scripts, you've got that sense of reproducibility. And I guess, Charlotte, you could really explain to us how that sort of reduces the margin for error while having that sort of automated piece with the Jupyter Notebooks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think particularly in things like in areas like data processing, where you might, it's very common for scientists to spend a lot of time with a lot of spreadsheets, copy and pasting values from one format into another one so that they can actually do the analysis that they want to do. This kind of data structuring piece can be very time consuming, but also more importantly, it can be incredibly error prone. And by having these kind of standardized procedures, it can make it happen almost instantaneously. And it can also take out that human error element, which could be a real risk to your analysis.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess analyzing that data, just using a simple bit of code makes it just so accessible to anyone at any level in any organization. You might have interns, you'll have senior researchers, and anyone can create these data extrapolations with Jupyter Notebooks. So a very cool feature to have. So long awaited. Jupyter Notebooks, as we mentioned, is a premium feature. If you are a Labstep Pro subscriber and in the enterprise tier, you will have access to this. And to enable it, all you need to do is reach out to your customer success manager. So many of you guys may know that would be myself, Ethan, or Eloise Hatfield, or you can get in touch with us at info@labstep.com and we can get that turned on for you. And once it's activated, all you need to do is use the / command and you can start using your scripts. And we are here to help you. As we mentioned, we've got the entire customer success team and we've got the entire implementations team. And we really are here to help you on this learning journey. As young scientists who haven't been in the industry very long, I'm sure, Ethan, you can agree with me that using code to analyze your data is something quite new, but it could be new for anyone at any stage in their career. So we are really here to help you, guide you, setting up your scripts and get you started on using them. So if you are a free user, part of the freemium tier, Jupyter Notebooks isn't available, but if you are interested, we can get in touch with us and we can see what we can do for you. So as you can see, we probably have a few polls up running, so you guys can answer that in your own time. And I will just go ahead to the next slide.
Yeah, there's been a great conversation going on in the chat about the different libraries. Thanks all who've been involved in that. I'm just going to sort of read out what Barney's written, because I think it's a really good point to make, is that some of the standard libraries, pandas, matplotlib, numpy and scipy are already there and installed. But if you want to use other things, anything else on PyPy, you can install it using the pip command in your scripts. So this gives you access to a wide range of libraries.
Very cool. Yeah, so Charlotte, I don't know if you wanted to give us all a bit of a recap on the very interesting things you've spoken to us about today, because I'm sure everyone is eager to get more questions in.
Sure. Yeah, so Jupyter Notebooks, it's a programming environment. You can use it for running scripts to automate your workflows, to do data analysis and data structuring, that kind of thing. It allows you to run all the standard Python libraries and then some, as we've just discussed. You can create these scripts and then they're sort of very, you can reuse them, use them in different experiments in order to create a sort of standardized means of doing things. And the great thing is now this is integrated with Labstep. It provides you this whole environment for doing your analysis, for collaborating, for making your workflows within one place where many people can access them and work together.
Amazing. And I think like it's so interesting as well to get that sort of move towards API. I mean, API is spoken about in so many different industries. So it's nice to know that Labstep is integrating this and making sure that everyone is using this sort of really common industry tool. So let's jump into some questions. Ethan, read out what we've got.
Yeah, we've got a few here. So is there a way to update the experiment template using API?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So you can set up new experiment templates using the API if you want to. That's no problem at all. You can run that within a Jupyter Notebook, or you can access the API locally, both of which work.
Cool. Another one is, do I need to install any packages like pandas, matplotlib for initial Jupyter Notebook package, or is everything there?
Yeah, for sure. So as I go back to Barney's guidance on this, a lot of the standard packages are already there for you to use. So that's pandas, matplotlib, numpy and scipy. There you can install other ones. You can use the it's a sort of modulo pip command at the start of a script in order to install things.
Cool, and that was some of the questions. We'll give it a couple more minutes just to see if any more trickle through. And just going back to what you were saying, Amira, about when I was doing my projects, yeah, learning all this, knowing all this at that time would have been so useful. But you know, you live and you learn.
Yeah, exactly. Can't go back now and redo them just because we want to use Jupyter Notebooks.
Yeah, I wish.
But yeah, I think it's so. Charlotte, I don't know if you can like give us a little bit of sort of insight in just how cool like these automated softwares really are, having a bit more experience than Ethan and I.
Sorry, specifically what ones?
Yeah, just anything. I mean, just the world of automation. It's so new to us that we're eager to learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I think there's there's a lot that can be covered here, and I don't feel like I can do it much justice at the minute. But for sure, I mean, automation stretches across the whole area of R&D. So that's, you know, things like your planning of experiments, you know, how you plan experiments, the actual execution, and also your data analysis and how you present that data. So there's lots of tools that stretch widely across that whole journey. To my knowledge, there's nothing that covers everything. Everything does some part of the journey or lots of the journey. But certainly things like this can like really help with those bits in between, stuff like Jupyter Notebooks, where you've got these like really difficult parts in your process that would normally need quite a lot of manual intervention. I think we've got a bit of discussion on the chat here still.
Yeah.
I think if you're having trouble setting up templates using the API, please get in touch with us. I don't know, can we get details of people after the webinar, or can we get directly in touch with people? Amira?
Yeah. So if you just want to pop in your, if you email us at info@labstep, then just email us with your query and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And because there are so many questions to get raised with such a flexible tool, that, yeah, just let us know and we'll be able to answer you.
Sure. So this, Leonard, if you're having specific problems about updating the templates, that's something we can definitely help with. So yeah, I'll drop you a line and we can sort out the problems that you're having with that. And our other question is it installing the package only within the script or saved for future use? I think each time that you open up a new notebook within Labstep, you're going to have to install the packages again, but it is simply a case of having a line at the beginning of your script. So you just have to make sure that that's there for every script. You don't need to use it for every cell within the notebook, but each time you do a new notebook, you will need it.
Great. Maybe time for one or two more questions and then we'll move on to the rest of the slides.
Yeah, we've got a question here. Can you connect and interface devices into Labstep?
Yeah, absolutely. We have what's called a device client, so we can use that to capture data that comes from devices, and then you can pull that into your experiments. Like what we saw in one of those videos where I was dropping data in to an upload field. Rather than doing it that way, you can actually pull it straight in through devices, and then you can access that data in the same way that we went through in the video.
Amazing. And Ethan, I don't know if you want to pop a link in the chat from our help guide on how to install the device client, because that would probably be really helpful. Amazing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move on with the webinar. And if we have any more questions towards the end, we will address one or two of them. So I think everyone, I've really enjoyed, Charlotte, learning about Jupyter Notebooks, and I can imagine that you'll go away and we'll have lots of questions and things to talk about. So the webinar will become watchable on demand from tomorrow. So from tomorrow, rewatch it, share it with your collaborators, your team members, chat about how you think that Jupyter Notebooks can really work for you. If you're really, really eager and you really want to get this set up, contact us either at info@labstep or contacting your customer success manager, and we'll help you get started. We have lots of new webinars. We try to do one every single month, so just keep your eye out for that. We have newsletters so it can keep you guys informed of some of the new features that we have going on. So yeah, just stay engaged with us. We're always bringing out new things. We always want to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys want. So yeah, that is really all for today. Ethan, I don't know if we had a few more questions trickling in before we finish up.
None at the moment.
Okay.
But
yeah, I mean, Charlotte, I think, you know, how easy is it to get our Labstep customers set up on Jupyter Notebooks?
Yeah, to actually get the functionality switched on for them, that's no trouble at all. Just get in touch and we can do it like really quickly. We'll do it ASAP. If you need any support in terms of how to write your scripts and that kind of thing, yeah, it sort of depends on what is required, but we'll be on hand as quickly as possible, and we can certainly just quickly send you some example scripts to get you up and running quickly.
Amazing. Well, Charlotte, Ethan, I thank you very, very much for joining me on this webinar. It was very interesting having that insight and learning lots about Jupyter Notebooks. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Keep an eye out for our new features and our next webinars. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Amira.
No
Thanks so
worries.
much. Thank you for
See you
joining
next
us,
time.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.